Who is the greatest baseball player to ever step on the face of the earth? This has been something I've been trying to figure out for a very long time. I've been searching the web like a crazy person. I've been on many websites, and it seems like there is a majority of websites who agree with a lot of players. Willie Mays, Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, Aaron Loop. Wait a minute. He fucking sucks. This is something I'll mention at the beginning of this video, and I'll also bring this up again at the end of this video too, because I feel like this is a very generational thing, if that's a word. Because if you grew up, let's say you grew up in the 90s, chances are you think players like Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, Griffey are most likely the GOATs. Because it does seem like if you did grow up in the 90s or something like that, you ask them who they personally think is the greatest of all time, they will say somebody like that. They won't necessarily say Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, somebody like that, somebody who played way back in the day. Pretty sure they do update these lists a lot. A lot of players in the top 10 don't really go down in rank that I've noticed. Some of the websites too even mention that are steroid users eligible to be on these lists. All of them are, because you do see a lot of those players not even in the list for top 50 or something like that, top 10. So what I'll do now is I will go over a lot of the players who were mentioned by almost all of these websites. It seems like there is a consensus for all of these players who are well deserving to be in the conversation for best baseball players of all time. Honus Wagner was somebody I saw a lot on these lists. He had 328 in his career. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see Wagner play because he did play from 1897 to 1917. Mickey Mantle was somebody else who was also mentioned pretty much every time. Mickey Mantle holds the record for most World Series home runs with 18. Imagine that! 18 home runs in the World Series by a single player. Roger Clemens, no surprise, was also somebody who was brought up a lot, but of course, there's always that debate on should they be in the list, or in the category I should say, because of the steroid usage. Ty Cobb has a career batting average of 366. I mean, try to look at that stat without vomiting all over the floor. Hank Aaron does hold the record for most RBIs, 2,297. Does have 755 home runs too. That's always another debate. Who is really the home run king? When you talk about that, Hank Aaron is always brought up. I mean, whenever you do talk about the greatest baseball players of all time, there's legitimately one player who is always brought up, whether it's if you agree or don't agree, Barry Bonds. Of course, he does hold the record for most home runs in a single season with 73. Does have the most career home runs too with 762. But of course, like I said, with Hank Aaron, it's always a debate who is really the home run king. Like, when you really read Barry Bonds' stats and all this stuff, you can't look at the screen without your eyes falling out of your face. If we can all agree about one thing when we discuss Barry Bonds, it's that no pitcher wanted to face him. No chance. Willie Mays, even though I wasn't able to see him play, his stats are still ridiculous, obviously. He has 660 home runs, 3,283 hits, almost 2,000 RBIs. He has 1,903, 338 stolen bags, 12 gold gloves. That's pretty crazy, man. This is the thing about Willie Mays too. He started his career in 1951. They didn't even start giving out the Gold Glove Award until 1957. Seems like everybody does agree who should be number one on every single list. This is the thing too, when you look at all these lists and you see who is number one, they don't even show stats. They just say Babe Ruth. Let's move on. I agree with all these players. I'm not saying I don't agree or anything. I definitely agree with all these players who are mentioned, but this is what I was talking about. This is kind of a generational thing, right? Because if you did grow up in the 80s, 90s, even 2000s, you obviously have a different opinion on who should be crowned the GOAT, which makes sense. Every single player I just named was probably in the top 10 for every website I've seen. If they weren't in the top 10, they were 11. 12, 13, 14. Not that far behind from the 10 spot. But this is, I guess if you want my opinion on this, this is probably something I was scratching my head at for a long time, because I just didn't understand how this could be something, I don't know, this was almost disrespect. I did grow up in the 90s. I also did see where a certain player was mentioned on these lists. I saw a top 100 list of the best players of all time. And number 35 was Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, I couldn't help but look at the screen for almost 5 minutes and say to myself, what in the blue fuck are you guys saying? Ken Griffey Jr., in my opinion, is the best player to ever step foot on a diamond. I believe not only would have Griffey broken the home run record if he was never injured, I think he would have shattered it into a million pieces, a billion pieces. I honestly think the home run record would be so far out of reach that no single soul ever born again would ever break it. You would have to put it in the books and retire it. I don't even think I mentioned A-Rod yet, but he wasn't really in the top 10 for many of the lists I saw. Barry Bonds was in every top 5, I believe. But A-Rod was around the area of Randy Johnson from 25 to 15, something like that. I think that A-Rod was dominant, absolutely dominant when he was in the league. Steroids or not, I think A-Rod would have been an amazing player. It really is very difficult. Very. You look at all the best players of all time. How can you even pick who should be number one? Because let's say this is something else too. Imagine if you put Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., Hank Aaron on the same baseball field, on the same team, or just playing against each other. Who would stand out the most? Who would be the player that you were in the stands watching and you would say, that player is the best out of every single player I'm seeing right now? This was kind of a different video for the channel, but like I said, always a good debate, a good discussion can start from videos like this. I appreciate everybody watching these videos. You are all legendary human beings. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. If you are new to the channel, subscribe as well. I will see everybody in the next video.